Oh, hello. Friday. Here we are. And there you are. See me throwing things around the studio there on the door cam. Finally Friday is being brought to you this week by Major Spoilers VIP and Patreon members from around the world. You can head over to patreon.com/Major Spoilers. Join a growing community of awesome people. Find out more about how you can help us continue far into the future. Well, that's not the one that I wanted to do. There we go. Happy Friday. How's your year going? You having a good year? It's basically the same as last year, right? Oh, hi, Squirrel Brian. How are you doing? Everybody have a good new year? Is the year off to the start that you thought it would be? Anything exciting happen? 8 days in. Holy cow, man. It's finally Friday, says the J1J Michael T. That's correct. And I'm here to talk to you about stuff. I actually don't have any kind of plan. Because after Wednesday, I didn't even know if we were going to be around to do Finally Friday this week. Did you have a good break? I mean, we have been off for 2 weeks. I was telling someone the other day that I haven't turned on this PC in almost a month now. Since we did our VIP live stream was the last time this was on. I was like, man, I sure hope that it works and that I remember how to do everything as we come back to do a live stream for 2021. And of course, we'll be back this weekend. I think we'll be back this weekend to do another game stream. But it was good. It was very relaxing to have a couple of weeks off and to kind of do a lot of nothing. And I don't know if you guys have been able to do a lot of nothings or not. Some people do, some people don't. Some people are already at home because of the pandemic, and so they really can't go anywhere. I didn't go anywhere. But, you know, to have especially the Christmas weekend, that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then the New Year's weekend, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, where it was basically not doing anything but lounging around, hanging out, watching movies with the family, that really helped recharge the batteries. And I hope you were able to recharge some batteries as well. Well, hello there, Malone. Thanks for a good 2020. You guys put out more content than I can keep up with most weeks. I have to binge every now and then. Well, that's nice. That's okay. I'm not going to talk about goals. We've talked about goals before in the past. So you can go back into previous Finally Friday episodes over on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Major Spoilers Video, and look up those Finally Friday episodes. But I do know that this year I want to do a lot more writing. And something came in the mail the other day that I completely forgot that I had ordered. It feels like I ordered it 2 years ago. Heck, I may have only ordered it in February or March of this past year. And then it finally arrived. And it is something called, I don't know if you guys have heard of this or you've probably seen it on your social medias, advertisements, the Story Engine. It says one deck, endless stories. It's not really that way, because it has a bunch of different decks. I thought we'd go over it. This is the first time it just came in. I've just opened it up, and I thought we'd run through it just to see how this thing works and see if this is not a paid advertisement, by the way. I did pay for this, and I couldn't even tell you what the web address is. But if you're interested in it, I'm sure you can find it fairly easily. There are electronic versions of these. This is basically what this is. The Story Engine is a story prompt thing. So if you're having problems coming up with ideas, coming up with conflicts, etc., that's what the Story Engine is designed to do, is to help you just maybe prompt your writing, prompt your creativity, prompt your dungeon mastering, whatever that it may be. So there are actually 5 decks in this thing. Oh, we've been playing Clank Legacy, Firefly, the board game, and such over the last couple of weeks. The Firefly game, is that the, basically, what is that, Legacy, Firefly Legacy? Or Legendary, sorry, Legendary Firefly. So anyway, we have the first deck, which is an agent card, right? The agent card. Now, the agent is essentially your characters who make choices in their story. So you're supposed to just take that card off and you flip it over and you'll notice that there's a bunch of different stuff. So, oh, here's something that's appropriate, a radical. And if you don't like a radical, then you can turn it and you can choose a warmonger. Oh man, these are getting worse as I go, right? A protester. Oh, I honestly, for those of you that were watching before the actual show began, you probably saw me shuffling these. A protester and a iconoclast. I'm just going to go with the first one, a radical. I'm going to go with a radical, so that's going to be our agent. So we lay that down. Our next deck is the engine deck. Okay, the engine card. Now, engines are the motivations and relationships that drive the story. And we can flip this over. And again, this is the top one on the deck after already previously shuffled. Wants to unravel the mystery of, or we can go to, wants to spread a lie about. Oh, man. I swear, these were all shuffled. You guys are reading into this yourself. Man, an iconoclast wants to spread a lie about. But anyway, a radical wants to unravel the mystery of, and then we have anchor cards. Anchors are objects, locations, or events of importance. So a radical wants to unravel the mystery of, in this case, a mountain, a flask, a pit. What's this last one here? A sacrifice. Ooh. So a mountain. Then we have conflict cards, right? So conflict cards. Conflict cards obviously are obstacles, consequences, or dilemmas. And in this case, we have, but they will have to unlearn something they were taught. Okay. So there's basically our story. A radical wants to unravel the mystery of a mountain, but they will have to unlearn something they were taught. Now, if you want, because, maybe this is not what you think, and maybe we could use something like a sacrifice or a flask or a pit. You could rotate these around. But we're going to leave it as a mountain for the moment. Is this how they wrote National Treasure 1 and 2? Maybe. I mean, these things are all over the place. They have electronic versions. I talk about these occasionally in my classes. There are apps. There used to be one. I don't know if it still works or not. But there used to be one on your phone that you could shake it, and it would bring up with, like, a character, a situation, and a conflict, those kinds of things. And then there's a fifth deck in this pile called aspect cards. Now, aspect cards are basically adjectives. Adjectives that you can use to describe other cards. So, we have greedy, we have young, we have chilling, and we have vast. And you can put these things... Yeah, this is how this is how they write a majority of Hollywood movies. You would not be too far off, because that's what essentially these cards are supposed to do, is supposed to prompt you to give you an idea to launch something. Essentially a log line, if you will. Log line is kind of that first thing that you use to describe what your story is about. Usually done in a sentence, maybe 2 sentences, but usually not more than 1 sentence. That then can be, that's how you can help with your elevator pitch, etc. That's how you can describe a script. And then, of course, you go into your treatment, then in a screenplay, etc. So, how about we could probably put, man, this would work anywhere, right? So we could say a greedy radical, a young radical. We could slide the card underneath that. We could put chilling. You could say a radical wants to unravel the chilling mystery of a mountain. Yeah, so I'm going to go with a greedy radical. Greedy radical. A greedy radical wants to unravel the mystery of a mountain, but they will have to unlearn something they were taught. Ooh. How could that work in a story? And I'm sure you could play a game out of this. There's another set of... I should have brought them in. I've talked about them before. It's the... what is it? The Rory's Story... What is it? The Rory's Story dice? I forget what the name of them is. Let me look here. Oops. Rory's Story Cubes, I think is what they're called. Yeah, Rory's Story Cubes. Let me pop over here so you guys can see these. These are pretty fun, too. We have used these before. Yeah, let me find my silly mouse there. And so these are like 6-sided dice that have all sorts of, little visual prompts that you can, and it's supposed to be a game, but it's kind of like this story engine where you go and you have essentially 3 sets of cubes. Let's just go and see what the current cubes are that they have. In the story classic cubes, they even have a Batman set, which I thought is really pretty cool. So they have intergalactic journeys, atomic research, alien invasions, Primal, if you want to get into that. You can find these at Walmart, Target, toy stores, game stores, all over the place. And these are pretty cool, except there's a lot of them and they're dice, and they add up quickly. I can tell you that. I think there's a set of 9 dice, and you can make a game out of it, a storytelling game with your friends. And I have a feeling that you could probably use the story engine, a deck of endless storytelling prompts, to do that. Now, let's just say, there's a lot of different ways you can use this deck. You could, none of these might work for you. Or maybe when it comes to the anchor, maybe none of those anchors work for you. You can, quote unquote, lock the rest and say, okay, well, this anchor, the mountain anchor, and the rest of these, not really working for it. I'll put that in my discard pile. Let's look at another anchor card here. And we've got a helmet, a weapon, a war, a battleground. So a greedy radical wants to unravel the mystery of a weapon that will have that, and they will have to unlearn something they were taught, or maybe rotate this around, but they will have to learn something difficult, maybe about themselves. Ooh, now we've created something that's interesting. So how many cards are in this deck? That's the thing that I didn't look up. Let me go ahead and reset all these things. I think there are 180 cards in the base set. 180 cards, so 180 divided by 5. I know that doesn't come out right. So one deck must have a little bit more than the rest. I can't, to be honest, I couldn't tell you which one has the most. Looks like the anchor cards have a few more, and the engine cards have a few more in this. Not by much, though. And if you've got 2 to 4 prompts on each one of these decks, that could be interesting. You could really come up with a lot of possibilities for it. Of course, they're not going to just leave it at just one deck, right? So some of you who are GMs, they have a whole expansion deck called Written in Dragonfire for the fantasy expansion. And of course, you can see here's all the cards. And again, they're in the same thing. I'm not going to try to mix these up, but it goes into the same way. Storytelling engine. Here's our that's our aspect card. Let's start with the one that we're supposed to start with. I say as I separate these, and then I'm going to get it all mixed together. My desk is such a mess. All right, so let us start with an agent card. This is our fantasy one. Okay, the backs are all the same, so you could integrate these. So what do we have here? We have an archer, a scout, a militia member, or a fighter. Let's start with a fighter. Okay, then we're going to go over to our engine deck. A fighter wants to pay an old debt to or with an amulet on this one. Look at that. Or a tundra or a sword, but I think wants to pay an old debt with an amulet. And then here comes the conflict. But they must forsake that which they worship. Oh. And then we have an aspect card. This one actually looks pretty good. We could put this aspect card, the one that I drew on the bottom, blasphemous, or blasphemous, depending on how you want to pronounce that. So, a fighter wants to pay an old debt with a blasphemous amulet, but they must forsake that which they worship. Maybe that's the hook to get your adventuring party on the way. So that is, let me get these all back together before, like I said, before I screw up and get these things all mixed together. Now, granted, they all have icons on them, so it would be kind of hard to get them mixed up. And there I just did that. They have a bunch of them. You guys are getting an unboxing today, essentially. What other sets do they have? I just went ahead and said, I'm going to try this. I'm going to go all out. So what do we have here? We have Written in Ash and Bone, the horror expansion. We also have, that's a big box expansion. Then we also have Written in the Light of Strange Worlds, science fiction expansion. Conan number 37. Yeah. Is that the... Oh, and then, of course, as I just mentioned, the fantasy expansion. These are the big box expansions. Just slide this in here again, because I know I'm going to screw this up at some point, as has been many of my days recently screwing things up. Let me put that away. Then we have some, like, mini expansions, which I have not opened them up yet. But we have... Circuits and Cybernetics, in case you want to do some cyberpunk. I know some of you are into the cyberpunk gameplay. What's that cyberpunk game that you guys like to play with your RPGs? What's that thing? What's that thing that you kids like to do? I can't imagine. This is such a thin deck. Oh my gosh. Can I even get this open? Yeah, that's a beefy little flap there. Quiet you. Oh, well, I see I opened it up wrong. There we go. It's supposed to open up like that. Okay. This one surprisingly does have each of the different categories. So maybe you mix these in with your main ones. Screw up every day. Yep. So we have the Cyberpunk one. This is just like a mini expansion, I guess. Then we have Cog Hearts and Steam Souls. Steampunk expansion. As well as the Mythwalkers and Eternals, the Mythology Booster Pack. That's what these are called, boosters. Dark Crafts and Ancient Horrors, the Eldritch Horror expansion pack. Beefy little flap, yep. Jackboots and Chainlink, Dystopian Booster. Man, I'm glad I didn't use this one in the first set of stories that we pulled out. And then the Wastelands and Wanderers, your post-apocalyptic booster. So a lot of scene settings. So that's a lot of cards. I would say in just the expansions alone, there's got to be at least 180 cards just in the expansions. And combined with, the base set, that's a lot of story prompts that you could get out. So just kind of running through these, I can see some problems with it. I don't think it's ever going to be perfect. And where's the instruction book? The instruction book talks about how you can maximize this deck so that you can make it work for you, like B plots, C plots, complex plot prompts. And these are just supposed to be prompts. These aren't supposed to tell your entire story. And if you don't like some aspect of these story cards, you just draw another. You can do whatever you want with these, really. The problem that I have is that as cool as this box is, the Story Engine box, it opens up. It's got a nice box opening and everything. It did have a tray, but I took the tray out because the tray only had spaces for the 5 main decks, and it's not tall enough to take all of the expansions and the boosters and combine them together, which I wouldn't combine them anyway, because you don't want your dystopia mixed in with your sci-fi and fantasy, would you? No, that would be bad. But I took the divider out, and even then, the cards and the decks don't fit in here easily, and I'm sure once I sleeve these, which I am going to sleeve these, they're going to be sliding around all over the place in this box. So I think I'm going to get rid of this box, and instead, I think I'm going to build my own. I'm going to laser cut my own. Now, I've had a Glowforge for 3 or 4 years now, and I've used it to build all sorts of things. And most recently, I've been looking at how other people are building their boxes. So if you follow my Instagram, the Major Spoilers Instagram, you'll notice a couple of laser boxes that I was using for Marvel Champions and some other stuff, and just kind of getting a feel for how other people are putting their boxes together. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to build one long rectangular box with slots so that once these are all in there, the very first one is going to be the deck of cards that you have, which is your main prompt. So you can just reach in and pull the first one off the front, lay it down, and then each section in this long box is where each of the other elements will be, and then the boosters will have their own sections, etc. And I think that'll make it much easier to use this deck. But I'm going to design that. I can do that in Illustrator. You can do it in CAD program, whatever you want. And I'm going to send it over to my Glowforge and have it printed, providing that my Glowforge is working. We've had the Glowforge out in the garage for, the couple of years. We've got, during the wintertime, I keep the garage warm with a space heater so that, the liquid that's supposed to keep the laser cool doesn't freeze and blow the whole thing up. And of course, it's vented to the outside, so I can cut year round unless it gets really hot. The one thing that's been a problem is during the summertime when it gets to be 100 degrees, even with the garage door open and a fan blowing, that laser overheats and then it shuts down. So it doesn't work quite well. Now, the weirdest thing happened the other day is I went to lift the lid of the Glowforge, and the whole lid just came off the hinge. It's a glass lid, just popped right off. And I was like, holy crap, what the hell happened here? And it looks like the glue that was holding the glass to the metal hinge just decided to give up. And I went online and I was looking in the Glowforge community, and people were like, yeah, this is a known issue. You can either glue it back together yourself, or you can send it in for a repair. But if you send it in for a repair, you're going to have to pay for the shipping yourself. You're going to have to pay for any repair, and then they're going to have to ship it back to you all on your cost, and that could be $1,000. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that. Maybe I will just glue it together myself. And people had all sorts of instructions on here's what you need to do. You need to use the heat gun to get the old glue off, and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, that's fine, I can do that. But then someone was like, oh, before you do that, you really should call Glowforge and tell them what happened. Open up a customer, a ticket. And I was like, well, okay. And so I contacted them, and they were really polite, although it did take a long time to get chain of command, chain of emails going back and forth, as opposed to talking to someone on a phone or having a live chat with someone. It's just all these emails back and forth. But they're like, oh, can you send us pictures to see what the problem is? And I sent them pictures, and they're like, oh yeah, this is a major failure of your laser cutter. You're going to have to send this in. However, how about this? Instead of, we can't, well, number one, they can't guarantee if you use the glue that it's not going to cause further failures on your Glowforge. That's what they say. But they're like, here's the deal. We're going to give you essentially a refurbished system. If I were to send my Glowforge back and they were to fix it and then basically put a new lid on and send it back to me, that would be a refurbished system. So how about we just send you one that's completely ready to go out of the box? That way you don't have a whole lot of downtime, because it could be 2 to 3 months before you got your other system back. How about we just send you one of our new refurb units? And when you get it, you just use that same shipping box to put yours in and ship it back to us. And we'll take care of everything except for the base shipping, which is like $100. So essentially, I'm going to get a new refurbished, updated, I'm hoping, because I was one of the very first batch people to get a Glowforge, which is probably why the lid failed. But I was, so I'm basically going to get a relatively brand new Glowforge for $100, and I don't have to be down for several months. So I'm kind of pleased with that. And then the other thing is that when we originally bought the Glowforge, again, this was during their initial Kickstarter, like 6 years ago or whatever it was, we also opted in to get the air filter so you could run the thing indoors. And of course, this thing's been sitting out in the garage for 3 years, and it's all hooked up to an outside vent and everything, and there's like really no reason to do it. But we forgot when we originally did that Kickstarter that we opted in for the air filter. And that finally arrived like a month or so ago. So, we spent New Year's weekend setting up a space here in the basement for the Glowforge with the air filter and everything so that I can do some laser cutting inside when that new one arrives. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then we're going to be doing a whole bunch of other laser cutting, a whole bunch more craft things as the year goes on. In fact, that was the other thing that we did during the break was I had the kids do a bunch of little craft things. The one thing we didn't get to do was the flow painting, the acrylic flow painting, which I still got all the stuff. We can still do it. But one of the fun things that we did was we built ourselves a bunch of field notebooks. Now I know my oldest was like, why do I need one of these when I just have a phone that I can type my message in? And it's like, because sometimes it's easier, at least for me, just pull out a notebook and write the notes in and put it back in my pocket as opposed to click, have the ID open, find the app, open up the app, type with my big ass thumbs with full of spellings, save it, put it away, all that kind of stuff. So we build a bunch of little field notes. Now this one has like 30 pages, basically enough for a month of notes to put in here. And it was a fun little project that we did. I got all of them involved, both of the boys involved, and we did some very basic ones like this cardstock one that's just the brown. And then we did some fancy ones where we got some fancy paper from the Hobby Lobby and glued it onto the backer board and everything. And then did a soccer one for the oldest boy, did a really cool like abstract painting one that the youngest was really into. And then we did one that was paw prints for the wife because she likes our animals. And then we just made a bunch of those notebooks. And that was so much fun and exciting that I decided I wanted to bind some books, like a notebook. And so we've got paper. The kit just came in the other day with some needle and thread and stuff. And so I'm going to build some notebooks that are much bigger. Here's a sample of the kind of the ones that I'm looking at is, like this size. Just make my own, sew them, maybe sell them, maybe give some away, make some presents. Yes, the smarty phone is far from smart in the cold outside, especially unless you have the gloves that you can use the touch stuff on. So that was basically my vacation. The days that I had off, the boys were off for a couple of weeks. They're back to school now. But the days we had off, we tried to do some craft projects. The boys did some bonding finally after all these years. You know how young boys are. They ended up playing lots of, what's that? Roblox. They played a lot of that, and they teamed up and started doing a lot of fun stuff together and staying up until way past midnight. Many times I would come upstairs after working down here and they'd be still in front of the TV watching anime. What are they into? One Piece, and they're into Naruto, and I forget the other one that they tend to binge. They're probably watching Death Note or something. Who knows? Watching anime and playing Roblox together and having their little LAN party. So it was good. It was good to see that. So I am recharged for 2020. I'm sorry. I am fed up with 2020. I am recharged for 2021. And I'm going to come back to this book probably next week. I know I'm only a few weeks into the year. But a lot of people are like, oh, you should do journaling. Journaling is so good. Journaling. I'm like, okay, let me see what this journaling is all about. So I want to talk about journaling maybe next week. I don't know. What do you want me to talk about? It's finally Friday. It's kind of open subject matter. Let me know. Drop me an email. podcast@majorspoilers.com. Follow us on Twitter @majorspoilers, Instagram @majorspoilers. I also have a Steven Schleicher account if you're interested in that, but you can go find that spelling yourself. And, of course, right here on our Twitch channel, I'll be back tomorrow afternoon. We will dive into some more Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I did watch Wonder Woman 1984. We won't be talking about it on Finally Friday, but in 2 weeks we will talk about it on the Major Spoilers podcast. That will give you plenty of time to watch Wonder Woman 84 if you haven't had a chance. And then we'll do a whole spoiler-filled episode all about the Wonder Woman's 1984. That's coming up in a couple of weeks, into the month. I think it's the 20th. I think that week is the one where we're doing the Wonder Woman 84 talk. So I hope you had a good break from Major Spoilers, although somebody was like, oh, you guys do so much entertainment to keep me entertained. I have to binge. We've got a lot of stuff planned for 2021. We want you to be on our journey. One way you can do that is going over to majorspoilers.com and signing up for the Major Spoilers email list. Not going to flood you. Once a week is all, I promise. Once a week. And you can find all sorts of other cool things at majorspoilers.com, including our vast library of podcasts and more at majorspoilers.com. I'm going to wrap up this week's episode with a look at our awesome patrons who make this show possible. We'll be back next week. Until then, do good, be good, take care, wear your mask, and all the other things that you're supposed to do. Bye now. Yes, don't forget to vote at Dueling Review over at majorspoilers.com. A lot of good votes this week. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. More stuff tomorrow, probably around 3 o'clock p.m. Central Time. I'm going to go eat some food, edit a critical hit, go to bed.